All right, David, we're on another SAP chat. It's a kind of a special day, right? We've got the Buckeyes Notre Dame game. It's Martin Luther King Jr. So it's also inauguration day. We have three things today to chat about. And there's Joe walking around. When he gets settled, we can bring him on.
Does he got a shirt on
I
this
don't want
time?
people getting dizzy. So right away, I was getting some texts from people asking me, "Hey, when do you tap?" Some producers that it's either their first time or they're in year 2, 3.
Yep.
And you and I were talking a little bit. David, when do you tap? How do you know it's time to tap for you?
Honestly, what I do is we were talking before. I don't have dad and grandpa. I'm a first generation, so I just kind of don't have anybody saying, "Oh, we always tap March 3rd every year," that type of thing. I look at the weather, and there's a lot of things to take in account for too. If I say it's January and we're going to have a week and a half of like where it looks like it's going to run, but then it's going to freeze up for another month and a half. If I was somebody with 25 taps and 300 trees, I would tap. You see what I'm saying? Because I can go make some syrup, have some fun. That's just there's so many variables to all of this. So you really got to look at what you think is best for you and your situation. But for me, around 1,500 taps of my own, boiling for just over 2,000, I like to have about 3 days of runs within a week, and then it looking like the same moving forward.
So do you look at like temperature at night as well? Does that factor into your decision?
Well, of course, if it's in the mid 20s and it's 30. So here's another thing. If it's going to be 36 and sunny and no wind, Sap's going to run. Now you put 36, cloudy, windy, it's not going to run. So you got to kind of really sit there and dissect some things. But I like to have, 25, 26, 27 at night, and ideally above 40 during the day.
So George at Middlefield Custom Sawmill just said, you tap when you get the tractor unstuck. I know George has been plowing his driveway all day. Yeah. So Joe and David, both of you guys, this is first generation for you, right? Both of you, it's your first time. Like you're starting a family legacy of misery. I mean, you're starting a family legacy of maple. And one of the things I'll tell both of you is you have somewhat an advantage because you're not ruined yet.
That's fair. I wouldn't call it ruined.
No, I mean, I'm saying that
you don't have somebody else over you that's still involved saying we've done it this way for 20 years.
No, 100 years. What do you mean 20?
Right.
Yeah.
100, man. You don't tap before President's Day, tap on Valentine's Day. I mean, there's all sorts of things. And
last year, I should have tapped December 18th, 100%. I sat back, looked at the weather, looked at everything, looked at how the season went, and because we were basically over March 2nd. I mean, it was just terrible, and we didn't have much of a winter, and there was no frost. I mean, it just you go on, and it just that really did even to me feel wrong. It just you kind of got to go with your gut.
Yeah.
But nobody knew it was going to be 72 degrees March 1st.
So we have quite a few people watching right now. A lot of comments already. I'm going to come to your comments, but I don't know if either one of you, Joe or David, have heard this before. Somebody once told this to me. They said, if you're a maple producer or a sugar maker that's been making syrup for 50 years, you don't have 50 years of experience. You have 1 year of experience 50 times.
Yeah, I have not heard that, but
every season is different, right? Every season is different. You don't have 50 years of experience. You have 1 year of experience 50 times. And I can't think of anything that's truer than that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I was having a good conversation with Brad Gillen this week, and we were talking about tapping, and he made an interesting comment about the early tappers, late tappers. I will say it's always best to catch the sap. It's better to catch the first sap run than it is to catch the last one.
Yeah.
I heard that comment once. I'm like, man, that's so true, because the sap at the end, chemistry in the trees change. Not the greatest sap. It's got that little, I call it that corn funk. It's got a little bit of a, almost like corn tortillas. It's got that corn flavor.
Yeah.
But I was talking to Brad, and he said, if you take a 10-year window and you have the early tappers and you have the late tappers, 2 out of those 10 years, the early tappers will be right. And 2 out of the 10 years, the late tappers will be right. I thought that was interesting. So what will they both do? I'm right. I'm right.
Yeah. Well,
I was right. I told you.
We just had a presentation at the Michigan Maple Syrup Association conference here this last weekend, and there was a guy from Vermont there talking, and all of their studies, I forget how many years it was over to be exact, but he basically said that your best runs are more towards the beginning of the season than at the end. And some other things that he said was really interesting about basically the tap hole healing. Into if you're on a tubing system versus on buckets, there's a huge gap, because it's got air, microbes, everything's open to bacteria, getting in there, healing that hole up, where if you're on tubing and running vacuum 24/7, you never shut it off, it's going to stay cleaner and sanitized, so it'll last longer. And then he's got these guys that got 100,000 taps, they're having to tap in December all the way, but it kind of levels out. They did say that what was it, like 70 or 80% of your syrup comes from like 3 or 4 runs out of the season.
Yeah,
it was crazy like that. I'd have to look that back up.
I was talking at frost break. Frost plays a big part. Like right now, it's -10. We're going to have 5 to 6 feet of frost. So when it starts to warm up, anything that's froze won't run. So we'll get a lot of real short runs, and they progressively get bigger. And then once frost breaks, normally it usually comes with rain. You'll get the biggest runs at that point, and then they start to tail off.
What else? So let's talk about some of the variables, because it's a multivariate equation. Everybody wants it to be this thing, so I don't have to ignore. I can ignore everything else, or just this thing, or just this thing. And Joe just brought up a good one, frost, right? Dan Crocker was mentioning, hey, I'm a little concerned. There's no snow on the ground and it's very cold. That means that the frost is going to go down, and then it snows. And when the snow melts, you still have that frost layer to melt. It could cause issues because of moisture. Melting snow can't get down to the roots. I mean, this is just one. He's probably had 2-3 seasons where this has happened, and they remember. These guys have phenomenal memories and documentation. So frost is, moisture in the ground, precipitation. I'm going to throw one out there for you, elevation.
Yeah.
Do either one of us on this sap chat right now have to deal with elevation issues with, where the top of the sugar bush is running, the bottom's frozen?
No.
I think he called that inverted, where it's running at the top because it's a higher elevation. The sun's out, the clouds are down, ground's cold, and it's not running at the bottom. Anybody in Ohio, Minnesota, Michigan dealing with inverted sap?
I'm sure once you get north of Michigan, yeah, most certainly. But down southern where I'm at, no. Jeff Corey said that he doesn't want frost in the woods, just a bunch of snow.
He wants snow, but no frost, right? It'll make the season. Let me get to some comments here, because guys, keep the comments going. If you would like us to give our, we're all professional amateurs here on this. If you would like our professional amateur opinion on when you should tap, please, I guess if you could shoot us a forecast on like Facebook, we can look at the forecast, and then we need to know where you're at. So geography matters. So we're looking at extended forecast. Every maple farmer is looking at the extended forecast right now, right?
We're only as good as the weathermen then.
Right. Right. That's the other thing. Hey, why don't we just want to give somebody an answer? I mean, I got a new guy who's tapping, and he just wants me to tell him when to tap, man.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I just want to tell somebody when to tap?
Yeah. Just in theory, this looks good, and what you should be looking for is what we can tell them.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then I'm responsible for the decision. That's what everybody wants. They want somebody to tell them when to tap so they don't have to be responsible for the decision. Nate Bissell said, David and Joe said it's their fault. No, it's yours. I'm looking at you right in the camera. You are responsible for the time to tap. And you have to live with, you can get your best guess, but you have to live with that.
Yeah. And we need to know how many taps they have, how many trees they can tap, all of that. If they have 20 taps and only 20 trees, then they should hold off. But like I said, if they have 20 taps and 300 trees, then you got a week worth of run and you're not doing anything else. Might as well then just move your taps over to other trees.
Well, historically, why is using the calendar? I'm interested in this because when I started, my dad used the calendar. And then some of the things that we did wrong early on with tapping, I do want to mention these because we had to laugh at ourselves. The first one was Glenn Goodrich teaching a tapping seminar where you turn the bit, the drill on high as you can go. And when you tap, you go steady, perpendicular to the tree. You start the drill before you go in, you drill, and you pull out in one motion because you want a perfect hole. So when you're tapping with vacuum, that hole being perfect, it matters. So my dad and I looked at each other. We had to laugh because when you're an early tapper, what do? There's a little bit of wood still. Ream that sucker out, get that wood out of there. And it's like, we never thought about it because we were bucket guys, right? So that was one story that I thought was funny where it was like, we didn't even know. My dad had to be convinced to tap red maples. Because, if you're a bucket guy, you pretty much stayed with the sugar maples because the sugar content was higher. So what type of tree you're tapping, I don't know about you guys, but we notice the reds and the softs, the silver red soft maples, they will run sooner than the sugar maples, and the sugar maples will run later in the season, but they kind of overlap, I'd say about 80%. So what'll happen is the first runs will be soft maple on tubing, vacuum, I need to clarify. And then that flavor will start dipping because it's had more warm days. Chemistry in the tree starts changing. So now you have this great hard, sugar maple sap coming in that's being ruined by the red maple sap, but they'll run later. So, these are the type of things that I think a lot of people don't realize, that it's just not one. The maple trees don't all act the same.
Yeah.
Different trees.
There's enough studies out there to show too that in an average season, if you tap red and hard, we're just going to say hard maple, so let's do soft and hard maple. You'll get more sap out of the soft than you will the hard, but the hards will have more sugar content. Softs will have lower, but as the season goes, like you said, they cross, but at the end of the season, you end up with virtually no difference in sap yield or in syrup yield.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, but there is I'm about 96% soft maples in my sugar bush, and there's a difference in flavor. And I think it's contributed to that. And obviously I have super heavy ground and a lot of iron in our water. We have to have, a water softener and everything. And I definitely think that contributes to a different flavor syrup compared to exclusively hard.
Make sure we come back to some of these, the geography, the calendar. I got to get to some of these comments, guys. It's just getting ahead of me. Alan Green says tapping versus making. There's a big difference. Dan Crocker is onto something. Tap early when frozen. Use the warm days to look for leaks. So you want to qualify all of this, that whether you're on tubing gravity, or if it's your livelihood or it's a hobby, those things kind of matter in the decision making. And there's just not one set rule. These guys that have 100, 200,000 taps, they start early because the manpower, they have to. They don't have. They
Out of
don't have
necessity, they have to.
So Dave Carlin said, "Hey guys, you all rock." True Vine Tree Service says, "First timer here." Vince Portelli says, "Way too cold to tap here in North New Jersey." Dave Carlin, "I'm a first timer also." River Hill Maple, "I tapped early last year and it was great. I just tapped hoping to get in early and now it's going to be colder than expected." Let's see. Jeff Outdoors says, "Howdy, all waiting to tap." Dan's Maple Products. Can you guys see comments or is it just me?
We can't see him there, but I got my phone up here watching the live, so I can kind of scroll through here.
Okay, we're Dan's Maple Products says we are tapping third week of February this year in northeastern Wisconsin. 1,000 taps on vacuum. Vince says River Hill early next week looks good, but can't bring myself to start till the 31st. Joe, that's a great maple setup you have. We saw in Nate's video here lately. So Jeff is admiring your operation there. River Hill Maple says that happens in Pennsylvania, but not in my sugar bush. Let's see. Every year is different. We plan accordingly. Long range temp forecast. By the way, their weathermen, they're going to do their best, but it's still. I like this comment. Nate, Ohio State is on. I like that one. I know. I'm getting updates. I'm listening with this ear. I mean, what's the score? I mean, last I knew it was 14-7. Looked like the Buckeyes were going to pound them into the ground there. I have trees up on a hill. Yeah, trees that are up higher. Cold air drops, so the trees in lower valleys aren't going to thaw out as fast.
Is it north facing, south facing? You know, you got all these.
Sure. Oh, I like this. I love people that aren't in the maple industry. George just asked this. I'll tell a Fred Sheelat story because he helped my dad the first year and he just kind of watched. He didn't know anything. And then the next year he goes, have you guys ever thought about tapping before the maple season starts? I love that. He knew nothing. He just looked around. He saw people were tapped and, you know, Dad and I were having on debates on where to do it, what to do that. You know, the crocuses over here and the frogs and the peepers and us, all these things. Fred just said, have you thought about maybe tapping at the beginning? You know? Let's see. What's up, guys? First timer here also. So Sweet Maple Ridge. Let's see. Is there a downside to tapping early?
Holes dry up.
That's
sanitation. You know, your tap hole's going to.
But what do you say to
the guys in the tree? That tree is trying to start to heal itself.
What do you say to the guys that tap in December and the sap's running in April up in the mountains of Vermont?
They turn the vacuum on, they don't ever turn it off, so there's no oxygen that ever gets into that environment.
They don't actually leave their vacuum on sometimes. It's frozen, right? If it's frozen,
it's out of necessity again. You're talking 100,000 tap. They just have to, Nate.
Some, not all. Some guys tap early. Listen, there's differing opinions even in Vermont. It's not an across the board thing. Yeah. I think that's the importance of this, where somebody wants to take somebody's information in a different geography, different elevation, and apply it to them. I mean, what do we know about the maple season? It starts south and it moves north. Yep. They're going to be done in Kentucky and Tennessee before they even start up in, you know, the UP, you know, northern, you know, up north. So it does move from south to north. So if you say, hey, if somebody up north says, you know, I got 200,000 taps and I always tap on this date, and somebody down in Cincinnati says, well, they're huge. I should do what they do. Yeah. They're going to miss half their sap run.
Yeah.
If not all of it. So
exactly.
Geography matters. I do want to bring that up. And then
for me, 20 years, it was March 1st. And we always knew that was a little early. It was more like the 5th to 7th. One time in that 20-year span to ever collect sap in February. Most of the time we had a very consistent frost and we always had some snow. We would judge our tapping date by how much snow we had. And now I look at the frost level and the snow level. If we don't have any snow, I'm more apt to tap sooner because I know the warm up will be more warm and last longer than if you had snow. You lose your refrigeration.
Yeah, but I
So
think all studies show, though, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's actually all the sap is stored within the columns of the tree, not so much the roots.
Not for my silvers. I won't. I did bags for 20 years, and if we're froze, you get that first. First of all, it takes 2 days early of 50 degrees to get them to run, and you might get a quart on those perfect days. And that's why I say the next, if it you get a 2 day run, the next day might be more. Then you get a cool down and a warm up again. Frost level goes out a little bit more. You get a bigger run. It just we have such an intense frost. None of that frosted soil or roots can move sap. And I just, I don't think you can carry that much volume of water in that tree, can you?
Yeah, I mean, and the sugar and the water is in there from the year before too, so you're kind of always like a year behind. It's already stored in there, and all
Other,
those little vessels are expanding and contracting within the tree. And as you go higher up the tree, you get higher sugar content.
I didn't know higher, but I did know it
I
can
thought
be.
they were going to feed the leaves. Listen, I don't know, but you're ruining my joke, David.
Imagine that.
So why a bipolar does really well in the like a bipolar like me? Why we do really well in the maple industry, and as a sugar maker, is the sap runs up the tree, down the tree, up the tree, down the tree. That's my only maple syrup bipolar joke. I don't know if you guys have any. You guys have any? That's
No,
it.
that's it.
That's it.
She's
Well,
not.
I always thought it was stored down in the roots, but I don't know. Like that's what I thought. So it wouldn't, freeze and
That's
store. Man, I didn't know that.
I figure once it goes by the tap hole, you're losing sugar content.
because everything comes down.
I
Always thought if it was up in the branches, it would freeze and blow up the tree.
Lucy tried to tell Charlie Brown that the rain and snow came from the ground up.
I'll send you guys a Vermont Proctor video.
So calendar, when to tap, weather. Here's the other one. I know if you have tubing, you try to tap when things are frozen because everything, your bit and everything, it's gonna be cold. A refrigerator doesn't stop bacterial growth; it just slows it down. A freezer, suspended animation, if it's below freezing, and then also like your people, like you don't want them to like be on, you get down to zero and stuff. It's just not even healthy for the tree or people.
Yeah.
To tap when it's 0 degrees. I'm saying Fahrenheit. This is I don't really translate to what would that be? 0 centigrade to 0 Fahrenheit. I mean, I'd be negative centigrade, but I just don't know what it would be. So,
it's still going to be the same coldness.
well, I think you want to be 30, less than 32. So when we did buckets, when does everybody start getting their buckets and stuff out to start tapping? When did you guys start doing it? Early on. Tell me the truth.
We like to do it when it's running.
Yeah. Yeah, we love seeing the sap come out of the spout, right? Like we're tapping it, getting splashed in the face with our tap hammer. Yeah, see Joe's smiling. Like we loved it because it's more fun to clean buckets on a sunny day when the sap's running, right? You feel a satisfaction listening to the bucket hearing the drops. But now doing tubing, do you think that's a good idea to tap with buckets on a day where it's warm?
Well,
You get a much cleaner hole tapping a frozen tree.
That's true. That's true. That's a good point, David. David makes a good point. When you're drilling a frozen tree, it just cuts better. It doesn't
Cleaner,
tear.
the whole nine.
I mean, Joe's a machinist. If you rip or tear, like it's not as good as cutting, right?
it gets mushy when they're running. It's like you're cutting a wet sponge. versus a frozen sponge out of the freezer.
All right, we got another sappy joke here. Why was the maple tree sad?
Oh.
Oh, wait, this is the punchline. Dan's Maple said, why was the maple tree sad? Because of Nate's sappy joke. That was the actual joke. We can get a better maple syrup joke here today, guys.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Good one.
We just lost a viewer from that joke. We've lost 2 viewers because of that joke. All right. Temp, tapping below freezing, the drill bit's going to work better. A lot of guys will say, hey, using a new spout every year if you're on tubing. I think there's just an acceptance if you're doing buckets and you have open spouts or bags, like bacteria is getting in there just from the wind. You kind of have to accept you're just not going to have the yield. I know the first time I went from buckets to tubing, especially new tubing, the installer always looks like a genius year 1 and 2, right? Because you went from buckets and, but the investment in your tubing, really, to do it right, you'll see it in year 10, 12, 13. Like if you put new tubing up and it's your first time on vacuum, you're going to think your installer or your dealer is the greatest person ever because there's no leaks. Everything's tight and it works great. So sometimes when you don't have the right amount of money to do a job right, you make the wrong decisions. So you're trying to get your tubing installed for $8 a tap, $9 a tap. And then you talk to guys like Scott Wheeler and they're like, it's $25 a tap. And people are like, they ask him, how does he get 11 pounds per tap? A gallon of syrup per tap. And he shows them, and nobody wants to work that hard. Nobody wants to spend that much on, well, you asked.
Do less taps better. Right?
What's that?
Do less taps better.
Yeah. And I like what Dan said. Why don't you do 1,000 taps profitable before you go out and do 5,000 taps so you can brag to everybody at the Maple Association meeting about your 5,000 taps? Why don't you do 1,000 taps well and let that pay for the expansion because they're making 1,000 gallons on 1,000 taps? Like, isn't that interesting? Like if you're making 1,000 gallons of syrup because you're doing it right on 1,000 taps, but it costs you $25,000 to invest, is that better than doing 3,000 taps and being cheap and not spending the amount of money? I'm sorry, investing the amount of money on a proper tubing install. So I try to tap when it is 20 to 30 degrees. It makes the best hole in my experience. Garrett Waldron, 100% agree with you.
I too.
That's a good window. It's good for the trees. It's good for the tappers. Not so cold that it's miserable for everybody. By the way, if it's really, really cold, you're not tapping as many. Like you get drained. You don't have the energy. Joe, have you been out tapping? Are you guys, either one of you, tapped yet?
I worked Saturday in my sugar bush for about 5 hours. I was pretty cold. It was windy here, and you know how open we are. And then Sunday I was in my sugar house with no heat, and that was bad enough. I was out of the wind, but it's bitter.
It's cold.
So I was telling David earlier that I am now an admin in like every maple syrup group chat. Like everybody's like, I like what Nate says. I'm going to make him an admin. So I get like 1,500 like approval things a day. And you know what my motto is?
Approve them.
Approved. Yeah. Like they're going to regret it because I'm like a free speech. Like I appreciate everybody making me an admin. I do. Like randomly, I'm like, what the heck is this? I do. But I just approve everything.
Let me know when you're on duty.
Like, everybody can make their own judgments. Okay, River Hill Maple says, I don't like the pounds per tap bragging. Someone may have 3 to 5 to 4% trees, while others have 1.5%. It doesn't equate. Wrong. This one's for David. Wrong, Hillary. Wrong. There are people that make a lot of yield at 1.5%. There are. I mean, these guys,
It's still not. What he's trying to say, Nate, is like they're gonna have to have more taps because
Are we talking buckets or high vacuum? That's
talking-
that's important.
I'm talking vacuum. I'm talking vacuum.
Yeah, there's guys that pull 40 gallons of sap.
Dave
per
Carlin,
tap.
Dave Carlin and I had this talk, and I keep telling Dave I'm trying to get my sugar bush to these levels, right? That I hear that everybody can produce. And he finally, after listening to me, because I'm going down to 2 taps per lateral, my main lines are really close. I can hold 27 inches of vacuum. Dave goes, Joe, you're not Vermont. Those guys have sap running for 3 or 4 months. You're not that guy. You gotta quit thinking like that. You have a 30 to 40-day window, and I have way higher sugar content, but we can skunk out quicker, you know. So it's different, and I'm starting to realize that. And I hope to get 20 gallons of tap average with at about 2% for the whole year average.
All right. Let me text Dan Crocker real quick. See what he gets. Jerry?
I think you just got to do the best you can in your own personal sugar bush, and it is what it is. Work with what God gave you. As long as you're doing it the best to your ability, the main thing is just have fun.
Right. I want to know
just have fun.
Acre, because then I can equate it to how far apart your trees are, how big your crowns are, and how much money you're taking off the land compared to all the other commodities do.
You can have the same amount of taps and everything, and then say like me, I'm on 98% softs, and you could have somebody 98% hards on the. It's just not gonna. They're gonna have 2.2% sap the whole season. I'm gonna have 1.5.
Now, David, I'm with you. You're probably going to make more syrup than me. I'm going to be making content over syrup yield, right? I want to teach people where you put your defoamer, how do you fire an evaporator. I'm going back to the basics, going back in time, going back to the basics. You know, how do you tap, hang buckets, why, how do you set up your RO bucket? Like all of these things are so basic. How do you filter? I saw one today and somebody's asking, how do you brick up, you know, a 2x4? And the fellow I was talking to about a week ago, he said, everything on YouTube is, I'm trying to understand how to use my, you know, my half pint. And he said, there's no content. He said, it's either a guy that's drinking beer and messing around with his phone for a minute 12, and he's not teaching you anything. That's it. And it's really grainy. Like, that's it. Like, if you want to see how I should just go buy a half pint. There's one for $2,000, and just do a class on how to run a half pint. It seems real simple, but there's no content out there. There's nothing helpful. How do you set the brick up? How do you put the blanket on there? Like,
there's new guys into this every day. I just got chewed out today on a Facebook page because I was a little bit arrogant and snobbish. And
I saw that you were.
I'm truly so.
You apologized.
And there's every day there's 20 people that want to start learning how. So you're right, and I forget that sometimes, but it's important to bring them along and include them as well. And
so this is a good question here. I know Joe knows the answer. Matt Praisewater, you know, he new producer. I'm assuming. Any particular bit that is needed? What kind of bit? There's different sizes, right?
There's different sizes, and those maple bits with the high helix, they really are worth and do what they say.
100%.
Yeah, I had a hard time swallowing that, but now that I've learned a bunch of stuff and understand what's going on more and better. What do you say, Nate? I got strong beliefs and weak something or whatever.
You want to have strong beliefs that are weakly held.
Yeah, and I just listened, and it took me about 2 years, and it's money well spent. You only get one crack at this.
Yeah. So, River Hill Maple, they're making an interesting point. I just want to point something out that when these guys are up at the 29.9, they're pulling so much more liquid that the sugar content drops.
Oh, true. Very true.
So, you know, if a guy's out there with buckets, where's the sugar content going to be? Especially a road tree. Let's just say a yard tree. Where's the sugar content going to be?
It's usually pretty high. Well,
two,
Just
three,
under
like,
three.
you'll be up there.
Under three, two,
And
two,
you're going to
eight.
make, you know, half a gallon of syrup. Say you have an average year, like half a gallon of syrup from that. On vacuum, you're pulling more moisture from the ground. These things are giant straws. You're actually, I always tell my dad I want to pull vacuum so hard that his pond drops a foot, you know, sucking the water out of the pond right there. So I'm halfway joking. If you really have high vacuum, you're actually pulling more liquid. And what'll happen is your sugar content will actually go down. It's interesting, right?
I believe that.
That's why if you're getting that much vacuum, you need to be pretty much one tap per tree too, because otherwise, if you got two taps, you're just sucking that column dry.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of studies on it, but a lot of these guys that are high yield, they just do one tap per tree. I mean, really,
they have to. They're already sucking that whole column from the tree there.
Because you got to go out, you got to pay for a tap every year, you got to pay somebody to walk woods, like one tap per tree. So
pressure that the tree is building.
So this is like, I want to talk about this because you know how, like I said, I don't know if I've ever showed you this. Can you guys see that number on my book? Read that number to me.
6?
That's
a
back.
9. That's a 9.
It's upside down.
No, it's not. I don't know what you're talking about. You guys, that's clearly a 9, but to you it's a 6. So this is my favorite argument for the people that say ROs change maple syrup. Technically, they're right because you're processing it faster, so you'll probably make lighter syrup because it's not sitting around as long. But their argument is ROs change maple syrup. I guess, you know, you see what I mean? Physically, it can't. Like, if the laws of physics and everything, like, you're just processing faster. But you'll hear people that are just, you know, hard line, no RO because the syrup isn't as good.
The only thing it does is it makes a higher sugar content, so it's on the evaporator for less time. So all it is caramelization of the cooking process.
Yeah, but it changed it because it's now lighter in color.
You change the cooking process is what you
change the amount of time that it's on your evaporator.
But those people are right. Technically, the RO will change because now they're making lighter syrup. And if they liked dark and very dark, and then they got an RO and they were just making all this light golden and amber, it takes them off. I just want to point out that it's perspective.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're doing.
It's a perspective. So, you know, that's why I did the 9-6. To me, it looks like a 9. To you guys, it looks like a 6. No, it's upside down to you. It's upside down to me. It's perspective. What they're saying is true. But if somebody is at a grocery store is trying to sell their non-RO'd syrup and telling the grocery store buyer it changes it, that's a little misleading, right?
It's
clean. I have a group. We're just going to call it a group. When I go to some of the farmers markets, they are no RO and wood fired. And they will sit there and tell everybody that I have a fuel oil burner and a RO and that my syrup is pretty much junk.
You just won second place, didn't you?
I did.
Second place in the state.
I did.
You have any idea what you're doing?
No.
I love it. Yes, I love it. Honest man.
I don't think my syrup will ever win here in this state. And I'll tell you why. And it's because I'm all soft maples and it's a different flavor syrup. 100%. I don't care what anybody says, whether it's more the minerals or whatever. I'm telling you right now, my syrup, I don't think will ever bring a first place. It'll bring second, third. It's done third 4 years in a row. It just won't ever get past that because it's not bad. It's good. A lot of people like it. It's got more of a buttery flavor to it. But as the judging thing goes on this, it's not what they're looking for. That's not.
We never answered Matt Frasewater's question on the size of bit, did we?
Well,
is it 1964 or
5/16?
What is it?
5/16.
And
19 quarter.
Here's the deal. if you buy spouts that are 5/16s, you want to buy 5/16 drill bits.
Correct.
And there are spouts that are, what is it, 1964s.
Correct.
So you want to buy the appropriate spout. This is something I didn't know. Look, you know, it's a 16th of an inch or a 64th of an inch. I have no idea. That's not very much, but unless your spout has a lot of taper, you know, hey, it could mess it up. I don't know. You're the machinist. I'm not.
You want to size appropriately. You want to go to a good maple dealer. Don't get them on Amazon, please.
Agreed.
Unless they're Fat Master spouts.
The best investment in my sugar bush with going to tubing was my precision tapper, 100%.
I knocked them at first too, but I really have one. But I tried to buy one at a show, and I can't find one for my Makita drill. And I agree. I think it's well spent. It'll last generations because they're built well.
It's a perfect hole every single time. It's just taking that. I can have my wife doing it now. It doesn't matter. Before I was only one tapping, and it was just now I've sped up my tapping process. Oh man!
And if you've ever tapped with no stopper, and you're all day long pulling your drill out,
pulling down. Mine was pulling down. I was terrible at that.
Yeah.
Have you ever snapped a bit?
Oh yeah. Not since I've had this precision tapper. No.
Third hole.
You might pay for it and snap bits.
Third hole last year, and I didn't have a spare.
I want to try the precision tapper. I've tried the exact tap. I know it was an early model. I don't think it's fair to judge on that unit because I think it was like just past prototype.
It's gonna do the same job, but it's fumbly. I don't know what other word to use than that.
I mean, it looks cleaner and neater. It does. It's smaller, looks cleaner and neater. We've used it, but again, I got to go to Leader and just trade that prototype back in. Do you know why I got a prototype?
You were first there.
I won the naming contest.
What'd you name it?
The exact tap.
Oh.
Well, so I got a free one, but I need an upgraded one because it's not fair. If I go out there and tap with that, that's not a fair
example. It does a good job, and it's just not for me. It's just 100% personal preference for me. It's going to do the same thing. It's just how it felt in my hand compared to mine, and I like the barrel style and the spring. It just didn't feel right to me personally. But I know Boxlers, they use them, you know, and they have good luck with them.
I'm gonna probably build one.
All right, I'm calling Dan Crocker right now. Let's see if he's probably rooting the Buckeyes on. So Vermont Maple Farmer said, who's got the better tubing system? The guy who gets 30 gallons per tap and makes 11 pounds per tap, or the guy who gets 40 gallons of sap per tap and makes 6 pounds per tap?
Young guy.
That's the old what weighs more, a ton of bricks or a ton of feathers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, also like soil and trees, like the
you can't control the sugar content. You can only do the best you can at getting all the liquid out of them.
So
you can't control the sugar content if you do woods management.
Boom. Well, bigger crowns. Yeah, you can control sugar content with bigger crowns.
Had to, sorry. But it's not, you know, I mean, it'd take years, but you can do it.
So Caleb, that's the fellow I was talking to. He connected with me on Facebook, and then we talked. He's in Indiana, and he sent me like, when would you tap? And I looked at the forecast, and I was looking at, like, you know, on Thursday in his area, it'll be like 8 degrees at night, and then the next day is like 30. It's going to be really cold in the morning on that day, you know, probably wait. But the next day, it's not as cold at night. Like, I think he said he was going to start on Friday. That's you know, Indiana. Caleb, where are you at in Indiana? You northern, middle, southern? You know, that would help us because the southern part of, you might as well be in Florida. if you're down there in the southern part of Indiana. You're down there almost you're from Kentucky if you're from the southern part of Indiana. Joe, you need to make a new and improved exact tapper.
I'm thinking about it, but that I like the red one because you can get at the drill bit. You know, you're not screwing up the chuck. It takes a standard drill bit, not the exact tapper. The other one,
Precision packer. Yeah, I had to dedicate my drill to it, but it is what it is. I mean, I don't have any regrets. I'm telling you, it's just so fast, so light, comfortable.
You got to take the front of your drill off, right?
You just take the chuck off.
Yeah.
You could take the thing off and have it put back on in 5 minutes if you wanted to. I just said forget it and left it on there.
So Conrad Chappell said, one person told me you could have 3 maple entries, take first, second, and third, and have 3 different judges, and the next day have 3 different winners.
Yeah.
So it's very subjective for sure.
Yep.
I enter my bourbon barrel aged maple syrup into the international contest every year, and I get rejected, and then I frame it every year. I frame it. You saw it, right, David? Like
I did.
Frame it on the wall, and I think it's hilarious. And everybody's always like, "You really want to do this?" I'm like, "Yes, please do it. I want all the failures." It says rejected, and I frame them because it doesn't meet any category. So, but it's funny. Like I'm not afraid of it. So, David, let's see. Do you use spin seal or saddles on your main lines?
Saddles.
Saddles.
I'm not big enough for spin seal.
What brand?
Liter H2O.
Okay.
With the little mushy gasket you put down in the hole.
Dude, they're pretty nice.
I
did buy some CDL to try out. That is kind of the same concept, but it requires no tools. It's got like built-in zip ties. So you pull down, it's got kind of the same rubber gasket, but you don't have to carry a little drill or a screwdriver around in the woods with you. So I did buy some of them to try this year.
That's what I use. It's got a ratcheting zip, and then it takes wires to hold it on instead.
Yep.
Well, I think in the future with AI, as technology gets better, if it wouldn't surprise me if they eventually make sensors on the spouts and it'll tell you which trees are performing well. So how do you know how much sap you're getting out of an individual tree unless you measure it? Wouldn't it be nice to know after you tap everything, getting a report at the end of the year, like this tree it gave you 4 gallons of sap. And then you're like, well, it could be a fluke, right? So next year I'll tap it another place, and the next year gives you 3.5.
Yeah.
You're not going to tap that anymore.
Yeah. It would be cool, but at the same time, yawn. Like I just don't get it. Like hold
on. Consider your perspective. There are people with 100,000 taps, and if 20% of the trees aren't performing, you're wasting your time. It'd be nice to know, right? Well, David, for you, probably I can tell you it's like 5. It's not that big a deal. At scale, it's a big deal.
They're probably going to tap them all anyway. You got some that are doing better.
Let's see. David, we won grand champion with 100% reds. That's YouTube user. I think I can't quite read.
That's interesting. What state?
What state?
Because if they're in Canada, I can see that, or something like, because they're primarily softs up there.
Todd Bigley, he had a comment. Why do we measure syrup in pounds per tap instead of pounds per acre like every other crop?
There you go.
There are some areas of old growth forest in Ohio where there is not a lot of taps per acre, but the trees are massive with huge crowns. They've been managed. And then when you go north and see the little shrubby trees up north, and they have 200 taps per acre. I mean, it's just different, right? Like you can have areas of this country where there's just massive sugar maples. There's just not a lot of them per tap, old growth forests. And then you can go up to New Brunswick and it's like, 150 taps per acre. I don't know. It's a good question though.
Yeah, it's money.
Maybe it would end up being the same.
How
you know,
much
but
money off the land? And you
I think-
judge on how much money per acre.
Yeah, but I think if you had 100 taps in an acre and 50 taps in an acre, that can throw the numbers off. Whereas pounds per tap, it takes that out of account. Like, it takes that out of the equation.
I want to know the dollars that I want to know the dollars per acre the land generates. I don't care how big the corn cob is or how many kernels are on it. I just want to know how many bushels went over the scale. And then I want to know how many acres you took to do that.
Yeah.
So a lot of like the high yield tappers, they're using spin seals because saddles will leak. They're going to eventually. Spin seals are better for
Less-
high vacuum, less chance of leaking.
And the key
I mean,
is
if you think about it, Clayton Christie, I think Gary Corey came up with the idea, and Clayton Christie figured out if we take a valve and we weld a hose barb onto the end of a ball valve, they came up with this. Everybody else copied it. You won't have the potential for thread leak. So just by making a ball valve with 2 hose barb connections welded on, that improves yield because there's threads leak.
Oh, I know it.
Whereas a weld won't. That's interesting, isn't it? But that's the attention to detail. There's so many little things you have to pay attention to, and everybody wants to be told, all you got to do is this and this, and you're successful. That's what they want. And then when you're like, well, there's more to it.
Have fun, Dave.
The key with them spin seals too is to make sure you use actual CDL tubing along with it for it to work properly, because
there's a lot of success with other tubing. I think HD tubing works better. And there's a lot of finesse, as Glenn Goodrich pointed out, that if you're using a spin seal in the shade versus in the sun, that temperature difference will actually affect. So it's time, pressure, temperature. There's a lot of variables that spin in that piece of plastic on there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, I want to be told, how many seconds do I count, right? I don't want variables because then it's my fault. I want to blame you because it wasn't 2.5 seconds.
But you still want the big bucks, don't you?
So we invested in the spin seal for our operation. We paid for it, renting it out to other operations around us.
Right. I bet that'd be easy.
I wonder if they were all using CDL tubing or not and had good luck with it, because I've heard that's a crucial part of that spin seal.
Here's a comment. It says, for someone like me, I don't have a sugar bush. I have 900 taps, but over 60 acres. So pounds per acre wouldn't work. First of all, if you have one tree with buckets on it, that's what everybody had growing up, like in the 1880s. It was a sugar bush. Doesn't matter. You were making sugar.
Mm-hmm.
There's different sizes. Like there's little bitty tractors and there's big tractors. Still a tractor. But if you could argue that I'm a pretend farmer. Okay, like I'm a pretend maple farmer, like because it's not very big. I mean, I guess you could argue that. But we didn't go over. It's Martin Luther King Jr.'s day here. I thought it was an important thing that we were talking about. A lot of people don't know this, but his why, if you ever watch any Simon Sinek videos, is he did not like it when man's laws violated God's laws. That was it. But all you hear about is the Million Man March, the I Have a Dream speech. They tell you the results of his why, but they don't tell you his why. And it was one simple thing. I don't like when man's laws violate God's laws. And for him, it was segregation. It was, all sorts of things that were, race related. But no one talks about his why. He didn't like when man's laws violated God's laws. Everything came out of that. I think that's interesting because have you ever heard that before? Like I never heard it until I heard Simon Sinek say it.
Yeah.
What is why? What no one tells you in the books, the history books and everything in civics classes.
I think I heard it on a documentary, and it could have been that, but
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it was that I thought that was interesting because no one ever talks about that, and it's a really simple thing. Our country's laws sometimes are wrong,
Most
and
of
there's
the
a lot
time,
of people that run around thinking that our government's infallible.
too
They're
many of
called
them.
amendments, right? It's an amendment. So there's times when our country has laws like women can't vote, people can own black people. Like that's not like that. That was a law. Our country isn't perfect. So sometimes there's laws, and I can think of even local ones or times where somebody wanted to shut down my business during COVID. I didn't like that man's laws. Like, you're not going to take my freedom. My company's going to run. I dare somebody to come in my front door and shut me down. Like, they knew, like, go ahead. I'm doing it. I don't care about your law. I'm going to do it. How many people got their businesses destroyed by standing up?
Sugar is essential.
It was, yeah. But not everybody knew that. People got very power hungry.
I
And I think
remember
you can tell where I'm going with this is
people,
sometimes the
say,
power, people get drunk on the power. And then what happens when you say no?
oh,
They want to show you the power, and then you're like, no. What do they do? What do they have to do at that point?
atomic wedgie.
Atomic wedgie. So, David, I get to say I told you so. We've let enough time elapse. Like David got banned today from some group chats. How many?
I didn't. Well, I didn't get banned. I got put on the naughty list,
Timeout.
like for 30 days.
Yeah.
And then the other one, I have to submit the post and they have to okay it before it can get posted.
You're on probation, dude.
My meme got took down from all but 2. Yeah, but to be honest with you,
funny. I know it was done in good nature. It was hilarious. It was
100%,
basically,
you know, and it just it stinks.
David does some pretty funny memes, and I believe it was.
We're pretty happy now.
And what was he saying? And like in the quote on the meme.
Here, I'll find it.
This got listen. It's funny. Like, have some humor. You can't be funny. And it was super political, right?
It was a photo of Trump talking, and it says, "This maple season is going to be the best ever. We will make billions and billions of gallons of syrup. So much syrup, we will not even need any from Canada. It will be huge."
And then
It'll be huge.
And he had one of my taps in his hand.
It's funny.
So it just, I don't know. I did it because obviously it was an inauguration day, and I thought it was appropriate. And honestly, if you're on either side of the fence, it's kind of funny because if you don't like him, it's something it sounds like he would say, and people can make fun of. You know, he's taking something small and, you know, blowing it up here. You know, or if you do like him, then it's still funny. Like, I thought it was speaking to everyone, and it obviously had like 140 likes on it on one page, and then there was like 40 some plus comments, and there was only like 2 or 3 people on there that were like, since when did this become a political page, and I'm leaving this page. And then they felt it necessary to post that they were leaving the page dramatically and stuff, and that's not what I want. I want everybody there, you know, to laugh. So I was pretty upset by it in that form.
You got more fired up as the day went on. So
I did because it kept getting taken down, and then they kept backing me into corners, and it's like, this is just the reason I was getting fired up is because I want to have a positive influence on the community, not negative. And I was getting frustrated because it was having a reverse effect of what I wanted. That's it.
You were Nate Bissell in it.
No, I was not doing that. Definitely wasn't doing that. But it's how it was turning
Well, I
out.
remember I saw something where you just asked a question.
I did.
Hey.
That got shut down.
So if you ask the great Oz a question, the great and powerful Oz, you get an answer, or what happens?
I did not get an answer, and it's still sitting there. It was a question on one of the pages they've had since it was posted January 9th. It was a Biden meme that I didn't even do. Somebody else did. It was funny, and there was no issues, and it's
You didn't
still up.
complain.
Nobody complained.
You
You know,
file
here's
a
this
formal
thing. It's
or
really
write a strongly worded email to somebody.
what's that?
You didn't write a strongly worded email to somebody.
No, I actually messaged them back and said, sorry that, I upset so many people with this. I was just genuinely trying to, give a couple chuckles and some laughs to some people. I don't want a reverse effect on the community. I'm trying to create unity here, and just have fun and some laughs, but it wasn't working. The thing is, though, I don't know why people can't just scroll past something. If I see something I don't like or I don't agree with, I just move on. I mean, it's not my spot. It's not my place. Like, that's their opinion. They post it. Good for them. I support it 100%. But I just scroll on by. And it just seems like a lot of people can't do that. And it's a little frustrating because I think 90% of the people on that page were laughing and enjoying that, and there was a couple on there, that weren't. And I'm sorry for that too, because obviously, we all need to get along and feel welcome, especially in this community. So is what it is. But with all that being said, I'm not gonna tell anybody, Nate, that they're a dictator and that they should allow this or that on their page.
No, listen, I think you should just be consistent. I think you pointed out something, that it was okay to do a Biden meme.
That's
not okay to do a Trump meme. There's a consistency issue. And here's the problem with rules, and here's why I hate rules in general, is there's always a loophole. So I've gotten out of the rental business this year. I only rent to myself now. I'm a pretty good landlord. I mostly pay the bills, but I rent to my business because I did everything I could to help tenants get through COVID. It was hard. There wasn't money, and then try to find them funding, and got through it. And I'm just done. But here's what I can tell you about leases. And my father-in-law is a retired police officer. And, when you have leases, the truth is all the leases do is give the judge something to pick apart. So the more stuff that's on it, it's supposed to protect both parties, but in all reality, you're going to get picked apart depending on the judge. But the less you have on a lease, the better. But what do some people think? The more. So you have more rules, the more rules. By the time you get all the rules in there, it's going to be so like an employee handbook. Listen, my employees will get so much more from me as a business owner. But as soon as they want to throw in the employee handbook in my face, which I can throw out tomorrow, not that I would, like, you'll get way more from me, like paid days off for working hard. Like, it's not in the employee handbook. Like, hey, you know what? You guys busted your tail through Christmas. Thank you. You didn't get anything off other than, Christmas Eve, Christmas. Give you guys, I think right now my production team's getting every Friday off paid for a month. It's not in the handbook. But when you want to start pointing out every rule, and this is where it gets so bureaucratic.
Yeah, well, I think I've come down to the fact that these Maple pages that I was posting these memes on, that you posted videos, that Tim's posted videos on, that they keep taking down. Joe's posted some things, and I think they've been taken down. I think they're their pages. They can run them how they want, and I fully respect that, and good for them, and keep doing how you want to do it. Yeah. I finally came to the realization that there is a need, want, demand for a Facebook page that allows Maple YouTube content, podcast, memes, kind of lighthearted joking around.
More news.
So I went and I fixed the problem with this.
Yeah. Yeah. Heck yeah, dude.
And, it's just,
Yeah,
So,
we're
David,
going to have fun.
say your Facebook page that you created today.
It is Make Maple Syrup Fun Again.
Heck yeah, man. And I approve everything. Let me say it another way. If an approval comes by me, I say yes.
So I'll read the about that I put in. This group is for all things Maple content, memes, and fun. This is about having fun and sharing Maple jokes and YouTube content. Manufacturers welcome. CDL, leader, Joe, have at it. The one caveat I put on this under there is if you don't have a sense of humor or offended easily or don't want to see YouTube, podcast content, or manufacturers, don't join.
Boom.
That's it. We're here to have
Now,
fun. It'll be, a lot of harmless, good stuff. I've already posted on there links to YouTube pages, like Dunn Family Farms, Maple Farms, his page. I see Tim's posted some. I posted links to UVM Proctor Maple Research Center, Cornell Maple Program, Sweet Talk, the RO Bucket, Sap Spy, all these YouTube pages, mine included. Nate, we got to get yours on there.
That's okay. I got plenty of propaganda everywhere.
So, it's just going to be fun, and people can post I want people posting their sugar bushes on there, whatever. Like when you're in season and something breaks and you get covered in sap, take a picture and put it on there. It just the lighter side of maple, honestly, just having fun. You broke a drill bit off a tree. Well, this stinks, take a picture.
You mean real things that happen?
Yeah, you go out and you just put this tubing up yesterday and you come back and a deer ran through it and it's drug halfway across the woods, You
think if I filmed my wife a little upset with me, if she was upset with me and I turned my camera on and she's giving me a what for, that people would like to watch that?
If it's maple related, then yes.
Well, it's because I've been in the sugar house too much, usually. Listen, she's spicy, that one, man. Whew, get her going.
To put up with you. So yeah, like I said, I want to have a positive influence on the maple community. Have fun. I respect these other pages. They obviously just don't like it, so we just had to start a page for it, and people that are interested in it will have a place they can specifically go for this now.
Do you respect their right to have the page?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you necessarily respect them. You can respect someone's right.
I do. No, I do respect them. It's their. Did Joe die?
I don't know.
His phone died.
I hope he comes back with clothes on. So here's the deal. We just jumped. What happened in the Buckeyes game? Because I think we just jumped. Something happened, and either the Buckeyes are running away with it, and we just jumped up like 15 people. So something happened. Are the Buckeyes crushing them? My son's not even watching. Wasn't watching. I need to hear a score, guys. Come on, Jeff. You're pretty much in Columbus. What's going on?
So, another thing we can talk of, since this is about tapping, is
I don't know that we ever
showed up.
Okay.
So last year, if anybody of you were following, I had a very difficult time with these leader check valves. The ends of them were breaking off. They had pinholes in the back that were leaking. There was a lot of frustration, to say the least. And so I went out to leader this year and for the open houses, spoke with Kevin, them guys, went over some things, and they informed me that they had a manufacturing issue. The people that were manufacturing this spile for them did not do them right, and we'll leave it at that. We talked it out, got a game plan, and I told them that this, even with all the issues I had 2 weeks longer than on the one woods that I tapped. I did some with regular standard and some with these side by side because I want a side by side comparison. And I tapped earlier than some people around me, and I still ran later. Now, granted, that syrup was a little off flavored, not terrible, but it was. I still truly believe in these, and I told them that, and I seen the benefits to these. So I'm running these again this year, and I'm very excited about it. And I put this up to I had some old ones left over, and this plastic is so much clearer this year than the old ones. So that means it's a better quality plastic, I would assume. And the barbs on these this is about double compared to the old ones. I can't see any other difference of thickness or anything like that. But
sorry, David, explain the spout you're holding up. What is it?
This is a liter check valve spout.
And it is CV spout, and it is the one you have to cut off and replace every year. So it's not
Correct.
It's not for the stubby.
Nope.
It's the one that you cut the spout off and throw it away. The
Correct.
check valves on the ladder, like towards the end, say the last third of the, basically the last third of the spout.
Yep. And what it does is when the trees freeze at night, they create a vacuum pulling back. So me being extremely flat around here, and a lot of my laterals are running uphill to my main line, the sap would be able to, in a standard tap, flow back through and into that tap hole, which is creating bacteria and unsanitary conditions. So what this does is it moves back in here. I'll try to get the ball to do it. It'll roll forward and seal off, so it stops that sap from going back into your tap hole and will help extend your season like we were talking about earlier.
Sure.
And I don't run high vacuum. I run sap guzzlers. I'm flat. Like, it's just I have less than ideal conditions, and this little tap can make or break my season pretty much.
Yeah,
especially in a warm season like we had last year. This saved my butt. I was able to make an extra 100 gallons of syrup because of this.
On how many taps, David?
I have about 1,500, but last year I did 2 woods next to each other, 200 of these and 200 of regular. I went out there. There's a video on my YouTube page you can go look at where I have like 20, 25 gallons, and the ones that did not have the liter check valves tapped the same day, went to the liter check valve one next to it, and had 80 plus gallons of sap in it. Side by side comparison. Now it's not study, but they're each single diaphragm sap guzzlers, very similar setup, same tubing, same taps. It's as good as you're going to get without being super scientific. I mean, I was more than happy enough with the results.
I forgot something important about tapping time earlier. It's kind of an important one. The calendar is a man-made thing. Like the actual months, it's all a man-made thing. And Easter falls on different times a year, right? So it can fall in March sometimes, and it can fall in April. And this is just a rule of thumb for me. When Easter is in March, I typically tap sooner. When Easter's in late April, now this is not like proven or scientific, but our weather patterns follow the moon more than it follows. The weather doesn't go, hey, wait a minute. Hey, wait a minute. We're not supposed to snow this early. It doesn't do that. It actually follows, the moons are more consistent than the calendar months, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So where Easter falls tells me a lot on whether, the weather pattern shifted. It can shift, a 4 or 5 week window, which makes me feel pretty sheepish about.
Was it early or late last year then?
I don't remember.
So if your theory is true, then it should have been earlier.
It's a correlation, almost always. That's the thing. I don't know that we answered like when is the time to tap. I guess I was trying to show that there's a lot of variables.
I think we did. I think we said you got to just look at the weather and you got to go off of your own personal goals and operation, Nate. Like,
I had an idea that I would sell tapping lube within a little jar, and this is guaranteed to make your season last longer. Just put like something in there, like water, and then you got to dip your drill bit in it every time you tap, and you'll have a better seat. It's like you talk about. I should just put tapping lube, snake oil tapping lube. That's the brand, and you got to use the tapping lube to really sanitize the hole, or you won't have a good season. How much could I sell of that?
None, because I'm going to shoot it down for you because they did a study on that with sanitizing the tap holes as they put it in, and they actually had worse results.
Really?
Yes.
A long time ago, they used to put a formaldehyde tablet in each tap hole up in Canada, and that tap hole never healed. Nothing lived. They don't do that anymore.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, they don't do that anymore. Well, David, I had fun, man.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to put this on the SAP chat on Spotify. This will be a podcast or added to it. I think we have 5 up now. Did I send you the stats on how much people listen to our idiot selves?
You did. I was pleasantly surprised. Man, I feel bad for these people.
Yeah, why are you listening to David and I? There's just a pent-up demand for maple content. So just real quick, just the SAP chats that have been on Spotify, 51 streams, 28 hours of consumption. And people who start it, this is the interesting thing, people who start finish 70.8% of the time. So out of the 51 people that have listened and started our podcast, they have finished the whole thing, our 1 hour and 20 minutes of rambling, 70% of the time. So thank you to those people who are making David and I feel like our worthless opinion matters. We're giving you some maple content. It's been cold. A lot of people are getting, you're driving a lot, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm putting 1,500 miles on a week.
That's insane.
It is.
David, you can turn on and listen to yourself.
No, I will not do that. Zero desire for that.
It's always fun, Dave. I enjoy doing this with you. So
definitely make sure if anyone does have more questions on tapping or if they are still struggling, don't hesitate to reach out. Go to our Make Maple Syrup Fun Again page or reach out to me personally. I won't speak for you, Nate, but I'm sure they can do the same for you.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, okay. just reach out and I will do my best to get you an answer or help you walk you through it.
I approved like 7 people during this chat. I didn't even read somebody named Muhammad. I didn't even I just approved it.
So what's this thing where I can de-admin Nate Bissell? How's this?
Listen, you're gonna get approved. Even Mahmoud Muhammad, he got approved.
Nice name.
Yep.
Nice.
Hey, well, thanks guys. We'll catch you. Have a good week.
Yep, you too.